So that next night, I was sitting there on the porch, and I was sitting there, and I heard one whistle.
Yeah.
Just just a little way from me, up the road, it went whistled, And I just sat there like I didn't hear it, I don't hear you. And I never fooled with those people again.
Right.
And then about 2 or 3 days later, I went back outside, and I had some more tools leaned up against the side of the trailer, there on the front, and I've still got them too. And one of them had picked that hoe up and bit that hoe up and down that handle. Didn't chew the end of it off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just bit the hoe up and down the handle. Like, yeah, I like you.
Uh-huh.
And I've still got them over there. I still got them spears. That spear's chewed out.
I didn't know you could do it like a location call.
Oh yeah, I have. I picked up a location call from one that I was communicating with.
Yeah.
It was before the one that I'd seen down on the ridge, that big female. She would come over to our house, and she'd stand out there on the other side of the fence, and she'd holler. And her location call was like a screech owl. But more of a whistle. And I used that. And I've used that call twice. I used it over at Bob Easterling's.
Yeah.
We were sitting there in his yard, and I hadn't heard from it in a long time. And the reason I hadn't heard from it is I made some of its neighbors mad. I was down, now I know you know this guy. His name is Eddie Miller. You might know him.
I've heard of him.
He's a big tall guy like you, thin guy.
Yeah.
His name's Eddie Miller. Me and him was down there. We went in below the quarry down here, the quarry is now. And we was going to excavate a big round water drain where water used to flow through the hills. It was big, it was that big around. And we was going to do some excavating in it, but we had to get into it. So we slipped in. They was using the quarry, so we just thought, well, we'll park up here on top of the hill, and we'll just walk around the holler and go into it. So we did that one morning. We planned on doing that for about 2 weeks. So 2 weeks rolled around. It was 13 above zero, and a bright moon and a fresh inch of snow on the ground.
Uh-huh.
We went anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Be easy to follow the tracks if you did.
We wasn't looking for tracks. We was looking for that cave.
Yeah.
And you could see a rabbit for 200 yards. Didn't have to have a flashlight. Shoot, there was full moon and fresh snow. I mean, you could see everything froze solid.
Yeah.
Well, we was walking around walking around one of them old roads above the river, and Eddie said, "Do you hear that?" I said, "What?" He said, "Do you hear that dog barking?" I said, "No, I don't hear anything." I said, "Let me pull I had about 3 hoods on. Let me pull my hood back," and I pulled my hood back, and it was a squatch. Okay? I said, "That's a squatch." He said, "You're crazy." He said, "You're crazy, get out." He said, "I didn't know I was out here with a crazy man." Carrying on, I said, "Well, that's what it is." I said, "Let me holler back at it and see what happens." So I hollered back into it in this one's language, in this one's call. I used that one's call that had been coming from our yard.
Oh, yeah.
I used its call, hollered back at it. Well, when I done that, about 150 yards straight across from us across the river, we was on this side on the hill, and about 150 yards on the other side on the hill, there was one cut loose. It was a little one, probably wasn't over 4 or 5 years old, and it was squalling for all I have. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. It was in January, and it was squalling for all you'd ever heard. Yeah, and Eddie said, "What in the world is that?" I said, "What does it sound like?" He said, "It sounds like a chimpanzee." I said, "It pretty much was."
Yeah, just about.
Whenever I called back in its own language, of course, it was a baby.
Didn't know about it.
Yeah, he didn't know. He knew that we ain't supposed to know it's even out there.
Yeah.
So it scared it.
Yeah.
And his mommy was plumb up on the ridge. It was one I was hollering at.
I wonder you didn't get attacked.
It's a wonder. But it scared it to death. It squalled for I mean, it squalled. I never heard nothing like it in my life, and neither did Eddie. And he said, "Man," I said, I said, "Well," I said, "What does it sound like?" He said, "It sounds like a chimpanzee."
Well,
And it did. It sounded just like a big chimpanzee you hear on
it
TV.
would sound similar, I'd say.
It was
I mean, they're
young,
about the same thing, just bigger.
just bigger, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was squalled, and then that old one up on the ridge hollered back at him, whoop, whoop, like that, you know.
Yeah.
And that shut it up. Well,
He's probably telling it to be quiet.
it was. It told it to shut up.
Yeah.
And so after that happened, the one had been coming up over here at the house and stuff,
Yeah.
hollering around, disappeared. Never heard from it again.
Uh-huh.
See, I used its call,
Yeah.
and it knew that, because they know each other.
Right.
Even though it was like 4 miles up the river,
Yeah.
it still knew who it was, you know what I'm saying? So I never heard from that again. It called one time after that from the blacktop over across from the house. On the back side of the house, it called one time, let me know about a month and a half later, maybe two. It let me know it was still around.
Yeah.
But he called, and that's the only time I ever hear a call, until I was over at Bobby's one day. And me and Bobby sitting out there and talking, and I heard it holler. He called down in the timber, about 100 yards away from us, about dark. Now I recognized it. It recognized my voice, so it called back to me. And Bobby's sitting there, and Bobby said, "What is that?" I said, "I've never heard nothing like that." He said, "Is that a screech owl?" I said, "No." I said, "That's a Bigfoot." Oh,
Didn't believe.
no.
Yeah.
So I just hollered back at it in its own language. I just used its call and
Right.
called back to it, let it know that that's who I am, you know.
Yeah.
So it's now using this area back in here. See, it was using that area down there at Blackwater.
So you think it's migrated over here?
Yeah, those squatches down there wanted to get it out of there because it was getting involved with me, they thought.
Yeah.
So they moved it out of that country, moved it over here, and it's using this country back in here now. And it's the only times I've heard from it, but it's still around.